I'm Dean, I'm the dad.
I'm Laura, I'm the mom.
And I'm Krysta, I'm the daughter.
And together we are Family Plot. So nice to see all of you. How are you doing?
Doing good, a little tired, but, you know, the new job and all that good stuff, so.
Yeah, I'm a little worn down myself today. I just don't feel 100%.
But happy it's Thursday when you post this, but happy it's our recording day and always happy to get together and chat with you lovely family members of mine. I haven't gotten to see as much of you as I usually do since I've been out and about.
Yep. Well, you know, working on site, that does cut into your family time a little.
I am very tired. I just cleaned the kitchen. Actually, I'm not tired because normally when I clean, I gain more energy than like.
Yeah, you get it. Cleaning and exercising releases endorphins and helps you actually do more.
And then you fall asleep.
That works for me. So welcome to another episode. If you're a new listener, welcome. If you're a returning listener, thank you for choosing us and coming back. Just remember, share the show on social media if you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, all we ask is you keep that to yourself. That's right. Plenty of Also, feel free to check out our Patreon, and you can donate to the show that way, or you can do a one-time donation through Buy Me a Coffee. Whichever, it all helps, and we appreciate those who do. So tonight, we dig into a mystery so unique, so unusual, that there are no easy answers. The mystery has been tackled by my heroes, Josh Gates and Scott Philbrook and Forrest Burgess of Astonishing Legends. It has been solved multiple times, and yet none of the solutions really quite fit the bill. Tonight, we venture to Russia in 1959 to cover the Dyatlov Pass Incident. But first, Krysta has facts.
Hello, welcome back to the Krysta Fact Corner. Is it time for me to say it now?
It's time for you to say it now.
Man crush. You said Josh Gates. I was waiting until you finished because I'm polite.
Aw, I'm so proud.
But yes, man crush. Anyway.
Well, if he's a man crush, then Forrest Burgess is also a bit of a man crush for me. I really like Forrest. Like, I feel like if he and I were at a bar, we would get along famously.
Fantastic. Anyway, I am here with you to present mountain facts. Hooray for mountains.
Yay for mountains.
This time, I was the one who chose this because I'm cool. But, so is Dad. Thank you for presenting to me to get my brain going, at least. And thank you to Mom for reminding me that I needed to get facts. Aww. She knows I'm always at last minute with it, but this time I wasn't. So, today's facts are from expresscove.uk. By William Hartson. Thank you, William.
For all your hard work and dedication. We appreciate you.
We appreciate you, and we appreciate the fact that you would make this and put it online. Because I know that if I was making something and I wasn't that confident in it,
just keep talking. You're good. Go ahead and go.
Okay, so fact number 1. The world's highest unclimbed mountain is 24,000 feet.
Bhutan.
Bhutan.
Yeah.
Which is the world's 40th highest mountain. So everyone's not scared of climbing those high mountains, but you know.
The 40th high mountain, nobody wants to go up. Got it.
Yeah. Okay.
Apparently up to the 39.
I would think that probably there is a reason, like
Yeah, I was going to say it.
crazy weather or something.
Yeah, it's either got like some sort of unpredictable weather or it's just like really tough to scale. Like way tougher than it should be for how high it is. Which is odd because I've heard that Pikes Peak is tough to scale, but people do that all the time.
I think people just aren't as interested in climbing the mountain because
they have to go to Bhutan. Apologies to anybody who listens from Bhutan, but
Do we have to listen to that?
I don't know, just in case.
Just in case, covering your bases. I like it here.
well, I wasn't really thinking about that. It's kind of just like maybe they want to seem more cool by stepping higher steps than just going to a 20,000 feet mountain. Even though I am terrified of how it heights, and if I even made it that far on a mountain, I'd scream. But it could be because it's a lesser of a mountain than, let's say, Mount Everest.
Yeah, you definitely would get more kudos for Mount Everest, that's for sure.
Yeah, especially since Mount Everest, since tectonic plates. I think Mount Everest grows 4 millimeters a year. So, it grows.
Yeah, well. So in 100 years, it'll be 40 millimeters taller? 40 centimeters taller. Well, 400 centimeters taller. Which is about 4 feet.
I don't even want to think about what it's going to look like in 1,000 years, because I'm not going to be there for that.
Yeah.
Anyway. Fact number 2.
Yes.
There is no generally accepted definition for how tall a hill has to be called a mountain. Some regions say 100 feet, or not 100 feet, 1,000 feet. Others say 2,000 feet. So 1,000 to 2,000 feet is considered a mountain in different regions.
Right.
What now? Read that again.
1,000 and 2,000.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, there is a movie, The Man Who Went Up a Hill and Came Down a Mountain, that has to do with the fact that at one point England changed its definition, so some of their hills became mountains.
Held up the number 2 and then I said number 3. How weird is that?
You know what? But it is the third one, because the second one was about mountain heights and how there's no international measurement for this is a mountain, this is a hill.
This one seems kind of connected to the last one, so we will be doing an extra fact.
Okay.
But, fact number 3 is, the Ordnance Survey used to say 1,000 feet, but they dropped that definition long ago.
Okay.
So yeah, that did seem kind of connected to the last one for me. I don't know if it was just me, or I understand that, but, yeah, that seemed a bit connected. Fact number 4. Mount Key in Hawaii is some 4,000 feet taller than Everest if measured from its undersea base.
Okay.
So it has a base that's under the sea. For anyone who doesn't understand, it has a base that's under the sea.
So part of the mountain is underwater.
Yeah.
In the ocean. And if you measure it from the floor of the ocean where it's sitting, it's actually taller than Everest.
Yes. Fact number 5. Reminding you, this is not our last fact. Just
Yes.
second to last.
Okay.
In 1999, GPS satellites showed that Everest was 7 feet higher than it had previously been thought.
Awesome.
Cool. I bet the people climbing it knew.
I bet they didn't.
No, they don't have the time to measure it. They just have the time to... So, fact number 6. I skipped the original number 6 because it was one that I already had said. Because of tectonic plate movement, Everest grows about 4 millimeters a year. This is an actually, I think we have 2 extra facts this time.
Cool.
Because I already said the other 6 facts, so...
Cool.
I mean, this one's actually the 7th fact. Anyway, I should stop mumbling and stuff because I need to get on with it.
Right. And project!
Project! Ah! Sorry. Anyone wearing headphones, user warning, apparently. Over 6,000 people have now climbed Everest, including a 13-year-old American in 2010.
That's a lot of people. But wasn't there, like, an 80-year-old? I swear on...
Yeah, probably.
I swear on No Such Thing as a Fish, they mentioned that, like, the oldest person to go up the mountain was an 80-year-old, but he'd been up it before, too, like at 78 or something. I mean, that's something for you. It's like, I'm 78, I'm climbing Everest. Woo! I can't get out of bed some mornings, let me tell you.
Yeah, it surprises me more than that, like, an 80-year-old climbed the mountain rather than a 13-year-old. Because 13-year-olds are known to have, like, a lot more energy in some places. So it's just like, whoa, a 13-year-old did that? Congratulations. But if an 80-year-old did that, I'd be like, how'd you not fall? I'm like, you have more energy than me at this point? How?
Maybe they have alien genes. We'll do an episode on it.
Grandmas have alien genes.
Well, you know, they buy their Jordache from outer space. That's all I'm saying.
That was cute, honey. That was definitely a dad joke.
Thank you very much.
Dad has very few of those.
I know.
Well, funny you should mention that. There's a podcast about dad jokes that wants me to come on and tell them. And I just had to reach out and go, I can't do it. I don't really have dad jokes because my dad jokes are things like, hey, Krysta, you're grounded. And Krysta will go, why? And because I feel like it.
And I would be like, no.
Or else the kids will say something like elbow or butter knife or any random word. And I'll just, you're a butter knife. You are. I mean, that's my sense of humor. And that's my dad jokes. And like, there's no context to that that's going to make it funny for the listener, really. So, but, like, they came up with an idea that I kind of liked, so it looks like I'm going to wind up doing it anyway. I haven't heard from them today, though, so we'll see.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting us know that was in the works. This is the first time hearing about it, so that's cool.
This is the first time I'm hearing about most stuff, honestly. I'm just now hearing about a dog, I guess.
Applause for Krysta's facts. Yay.
Yay,
I did facts!
So, let's get into Dyatlov Pass. Now, before I get into this, I have called this episode tentatively, and it may not stay that way, Cliff Notes on Dyatlov Pass, because we're not the only people to have tackled this subject. As I said, Josh Gates did an episode on it. That's 60 minutes. More importantly, Astonishing Legends did like a 2 or 3 part episode on it.
I want to say.
And that was like, I want to say maybe 5 hours altogether, you know, if you string. So they really dug it.
Did y'all miss the Holy Squirrels? Y'all miss the Holy Squirrels.
Yeah, we always miss it. When you don't say it. This is going to be a shorter version than that. It might be a little longer than Josh's, but it certainly isn't going to come anywhere near the Astonishing Legends version.
Oh, I'd hope not. We've already made like an episode that was like 2 hours. Let's not make it 5.
So, first of all, let's talk about the people that were involved in the Dyatlov Pass incident. Now, before I get into that, I will point out that the Dyatlov Pass was actually named for the leader of this group. It did not have a name prior to that. So that's why it's called the Dyatlov Pass as opposed to something else. Now, the leader of the group was Igor Alexeyevich Dyatlov. He was born January 13th, 1936. He was 23 years old in 1959. He was a grade 2 certified hiker who would have received grade 3 certification upon his return from the Dyatlov Pass hike. He had multiple successful hikes to his credit. And at the time, grade 3 was the highest certification you could get in Russia. Also, the next person on our list is Yuri Nikolaevich Doroshenko, born January 29th, 1938. He was also grade 2 certified. Would have been grade 3 upon his completion of this hike. He was 21 years old at the time this happened. Then there was Lyudmila Alexandrovna Dubnina. She was born May 12th, 1938. Also a grade 2 certified hiker, almost grade 3. She was 20 years old at the time this happened. There was Georgy, and most people called him Yuri, Alexeyevich Krivonishenko. And he was born November 16th, 1934. He was 24 years old. Again, a grade 2 hiker that would have been grade 3 at the completion of this.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you right there because I just want to give you some props.
Thank you.
For me, too. I wouldn't have even tried them, but I want you to...
Props to the father!
I just want to give you some props because that was... I feel like you did really well with those names, whether you pronounce them right or not. You gave it your all and you didn't stumble. I just want to, shout out to you for that because I don't think you did enough.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
So next up is Alexander Sergeyevich Kolevatov. He was born November 16th, 1934. He was 24 years old. Grade 2 hiker, would have been grade 3. Next up on our list is Zenaida Alexeyevna Kolmogorova. She was born January 12th, 1937. 22 years old at the time of the incident. Grade 2 hiker, would have been grade 3.
Okay. But before you go on, when you said Alexander, the first thing I thought of was the part when they say Alexander Hamilton in that movie? That's what I did. That's what played in my head, and I was gonna say it outside. I was gonna say it, but then I was like, wait, no.
Seventh on our list is Rustam Vladimirovich Slobodin. Born January 11th, 1936, 23 years old, a grade 2 hiker who would have been grade 3 upon completion of this hike. Number 8 is Nikolai Vladimirovich Thibault Brignold. And that last name is kind of French, actually. So my apologies if I got it wrong. Born July 5th, 1935, 23 years old, grade 2 hiker, would have been grade 3 upon completion of this hike. Then there is Semyon Alexeyevich Zolotaryov. He was called Alexander by his friends, probably just to confuse him with the actual Alexander. I don't know. Born February 2nd, 1921. If you are doing your math, he was 38 years old. He was a grade 2 hiker, would have been grade 3 upon completion of this hike. And then finally, Yuri Yefimovich Yudin, born July 19th, 1937, 21 years old, grade 2, would have been grade 3 upon completion of the hike. He left the expedition on January 28th due to illness. So, spoiler alert, he's the only member of the Dyatlov Pass group to survive because he left before they became the infamous Dyatlov Pass group. So those are the people we have. And the thing I want to point out before we get any further is grade 2 took some serious work to get to.
I was just going to ask, what goes into that?
Hiking several hundred miles and several hundred different kinds of weather. And then it's an even bigger amount of miles to get to grade 3. So they had mostly completed it except for this hike. Okay, that's a new idea, and we'll get to it. We'll cover that.
Wow. 5 minutes in, Chris has already got a idea here, what she feels like happened. That's interesting.
Well, now I put up on Twitter and on Facebook on Tuesday a picture of the Dyatlov Pass hikers. And we do have some pictures of them. They were discovered in a briefcase in like the notes of the prosecutor, and nobody knew they had those pictures, which brings up something that I'll talk about later. But anyway, yeah, they had pictures. So I used one of them just without any caption or anything as a guest. And of course, we had friends like John Lovitch, who's like, you're doing an episode on how cool skiing is. And, but a few people got it. Like, they went, Dyatlov, oh, wow, that's great. That's awesome. But one notable exception was like, aliens, not aliens. And then someone else was like, snow owls. And so, yeah, they
killer snow owls.
Yeah,
backwards Mothman.
Yeah, their solution is, it was a snow owl with a gong that scared away the campers. But before we get any further into this, we are going to take a moment for a word from our sponsors.
A word from our sponsors?
Yep. And how do you feel, dear?
I feel sponsored.
Way to go. So let's deal with the incident. In 1959, a group was formed for a skiing expedition across the northern Ural Mountains in Sverdlovsk Oblast, Soviet Union. Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old radio engineering student at the Ural Polytechnical Institute, now known as the Ural Federal University, was the leader, who assembled a group of 9 others for the trip, most of whom were fellow students and peers at the university. The initial group consisted of 8 men and 2 women, but as noted below, one member started the hike but later turned back due to health issues. Each member of the group was an experienced grade 2 hiker with ski tour experience and would be receiving grade 3 certification upon their return. At the time, grade 3 was the highest certification available in the Soviet Union and required candidates to traverse 300 kilometers or 190 miles. The route was designed by Dyatlov's group to reach the far northern regions of the Sverdlovsk Oblast and the upper streams of the Lozva River. The route was approved by Sverdlovsk City Route Commission. This was a division of the Sverdlovsk Committee of Physical Culture and Sport, and they confirmed the group of 10 people on January 8th, 1959. The goal of the expedition was to reach Otorten, a mountain 10 kilometers north of the site where the incident occurred. This route, estimated as a Category 3, was undertaken in February, the most difficult time to traverse. On 23rd of January 1959, the Dyatlov group was issued their route book, which listed their course as following the number 5 trail. At that time, The Sverdlov City Committee of Physical Culture and Sport listed approval for 11 people. The 11th person listed as Semyon Zolotaryov, who was previously certified to go with another expedition of similar difficulty, which is the Sogrin Expedition Group, which nothing happened to them, so I don't know why we know their name. The Dyatlov group left the Sverdlovsk City the same day they received their route book, which that Sverdlovsk City is today Yekaterinburg, yeah. Sorry if I got that wrong. I know we have listeners in Russia. I apologize. I know we have listeners because they have given me their opinions on our episode about Rasputin. There seems to be some difference of opinion as to the actual historical events if you're in Russia as to if you're not in Russia.
I see. Well, that's good to know, right?
I forgot we did an episode about Rasputin. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's been a minute. It's okay.
So, let me stress again, these were all experienced hikers with ski and mountain experience. They had done ski tours, they were smart, and they were resourceful. Once, when caught among stampeding horses, they put their backs to the rock in a circle and waited the stampede out. That's smart, is what that is.
Yeah.
They were not by any means easily frightened or startled, and they sort of embodied the concept that chance favors the prepared mind, which is an old saying.
Yeah.
Their minds were prepared for just about anything they could conceive of that they would see on this hike. So let's talk about the expedition. The group arrived by train at Ivdel, a town at the center of the northern province of Sverdlovsk, in the early morning hours of January 25th, 1959. They then took a truck to Vizai, a lorry village that is the last inhabited settlement to the north. While spending the night in Vizai, the skiers purchased and ate loaves of bread to keep their energy levels up for the following day's hike on January 27th. That's something, is to spend the night just eating massive amounts of bread.
Yeah, it's something, all right. I'm not sure that it's necessarily a wisest something, but it's a something.
Well, it's carb loading, right?
Well, yeah, I guess.
You know, and carb loading has long been a staple of athletes engaged in long distance events, and this is certainly a long distance event.
Well, I certainly eat my share of carbs, so I can't really say anything. I'm just saying. This was historical. It's not like it was in 2010 and they knew that, you know.
Right. Yeah, this is 1959. They were unfortunately, they didn't have any future accoutrements with them. It might be easier to explain what happened to them if they did, because those people who carry around stuff from the future have a tendency to suffer total and complete existence failures. So,
well, yeah, I mean, sure.
So, on January 28th, one member, Yuri Yudin, who had several health ailments, including rheumatism and a congenital heart defect,
okay,
turned back due to knee and joint pain that made him unable to continue the hike. The remaining 9 hikers continued the trek. Diaries and cameras found around the last campsite made it possible to track the group's route up to the day preceding the incident. On the 31st of January, the group arrived at the edge of a highland area and began to prepare for climbing. In a wooded valley, they cached surplus food and equipment that would be used for the trip back. The next day, the hikers started to move through the pass. It seems they planned to get over the pass and make camp for the next night on the opposite side. But because of worsening weather conditions, snowstorms, and in decreasing visibility, they lost their direction and deviated west towards the top of Koletsyakin. When they realized their mistake, the group decided to set up camp there on the slope of the mountain rather than move 1.5 kilometers downhill to a forested area that would have offered some shelter from the weather. Yudin speculated that Dyatlov probably did not want to lose the altitude they had gained, or he decided to practice camping on the mountain slope. So that is the last we know of them. Then they sort of just didn't come up. Now, originally, they're scheduled to be back in Indel on February 8th. But they knew it was likely they would not make it by February 8th. Just too much can happen. So they gave them some time. But pretty soon, their families were like, hey, they're missing and they're not still hiking. So on the 26th of February, the first group of searchers found the group's abandoned and badly damaged tent on Kholat Syakhl. The campsite baffled the search party. Mikhail Sheridan, the student who found the tent, said that the tent was half torn down and covered with snow. It was empty and all the group's belongings and shoes had been left behind. Investigators said the tent had been cut open from the inside. 9 sets of footprints left by people wearing only socks or a single shoe or even barefoot could be followed, leading down to the edge of a nearby wood on the opposite side of the pass.
Fun.
1.5 kilometers to the northeast. After about 1,600 feet, these tracks were covered with snow. At the forest edge, under a large Siberian pine, the searchers found visible remains of a small fire. There were the first 2 bodies, those of Krivonishenko and Doroshenko, shoeless and dressed only in underwear. The branches on the tree were broken up to 5 meters high, suggesting that one of the skiers had climbed up to look for something, perhaps the camp. Between the pine and the camp, the searchers found 3 more corpses: Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin, who died in poses suggesting that they were attempting to return to the tent. They were found at distances of 300, 480, and 630 meters from the tree. Finding the remaining 4 travelers took more than 2 months. They were finally found on 4th of May under 4 meters of snow in a ravine, 75 meters further in the woods from the pine tree. 3 of the 4 were better dressed than the other, and there were signs that some clothing of those who had died first had been removed for use by the others. Dubnina was wearing Krivonishenko's burned, torn trousers, and her left foot and shin were wrapped in a torn jacket. So here's the causes of death on the 9 people. Dyatlov, cause of death, hypothermia. Doroshenko, cause of death, hypothermia. Dubnina, cause of death, internal bleeding from severe chest trauma. Her chest had been crushed. Krivonishenko, cause of death, hypothermia. Kolevatov, cause of death, hypothermia. Kolmogorova, cause of death, hypothermia. Slobodin, cause of death, hypothermia, Thibault-Brignoles, COD, fatal skull injury. And Zolotaryev, cause of death was chest trauma. Now, the 3 that suffered the physical trauma, they had enough damage that it could have been caused by a car crash, but they had no corresponding flesh wound injuries. Also, another interesting thing, you know how they found 9 sets of footprints? Those footprints were not hurried. They were not people running. They were walking at a normal pace. An unsubstantiated report that the victims had higher levels of radiation than normal exists. Even more unsubstantiated reports indicate that a military pilot refused to transport the bodies unless they were placed in lead-lined coffins. Several bodies had soft tissue injuries to the face, including missing eyes and tongues, possibly caused by post-mortem predation. One victim had missing eyebrows, which that was suggested as predation too, but I don't know any animal that eats hair off of other animals.
So, birds will pull hair to make nests.
Why the eyebrows? Seems like it would get more use out of the hair on the head.
Maybe it was the
if
only
they
thing
were
you could
covered
reach.
under 4 meters of snow, maybe that's the portions that the animals could get to.
Yeah.
I'm just spitballing here. Obviously, I don't know.
So that's what happened. That's what we know. Now, when I say unsubstantiated, it is in the official report that many of their belongings had higher normal than the radiation levels.
But, I mean, we're talking about the 50s. Isn't that back still when they were using, like, I mean, they may have still had stuff that was glow-in-the-dark stuff that had some radiation levels. I mean, we don't know what they had. We're talking about Russia as compared to America. We're talking about the 50s, which they didn't have the information on things that we do now. I mean, there can be a lot of reasons for that I'm sure weren't taken into consideration then that we might look at differently now.
Right. And so, yeah, we don't know. So let's talk about the theories, because there are quite a few of them.
There are, yes.
One of the theories is the Mansi people. The Mansi people are indigenous reindeer herding locals that live not on the mountain where they went, but near it. In fact, in the local language, they refer to the mountain, when they refer to the mountain at all, they refer to it as either Dead Mountain, or more commonly, the name they use for it means, don't go there.
Huh. Really?
Didn't know that from the name.
So,
Oh, gotta go to that mountain. Bye, guys.
So, initially, it was suggested that the Mansi had attacked the group in retaliation for infringing upon their sacred land. But none of the footprints at the camp indicated a struggle. And indeed, the Mansi had enjoyed the companies of the hikers. And from the hikers' diaries, we know that the hikers seemed to enjoy the encounters they had with the Mansi people. So there was no evidence that the Mansi people had anything to do with their death.
You know, I don't think reindeer herders are probably super, I wouldn't imagine they're like super territorial murderers, but I mean, I could be wrong. I've always kind of had my eye on that Blitzen dude, but I mean, sorry.
Well, the Mansi people were natives. They're roughly akin to American Native Americans. So
Right.
I think there's probably the same sort of bias that goes into dealing with them from Russians as there is from Americans towards Native Americans.
We're not all about biases up in here, so
We're not, but
all the more reason then for me to kind of be silly about it, because biases are just not cool.
And to me, it's telling that the locals who lived near it referred to the mountain as Dead Mountain, which, according to some people, Dead Mountain meant that it was just a mountain where nothing grew. And according to others, no, Dead Mountain meant, don't go there, it's a bad place, people die. Which, to me, seems far more likely, as the other name that they used was, don't go there. The locals don't like that mountain. No, don't know why. but they don't. Now, another theory is that it was an escaped inmate, a nearby prison community, because back in the time, they were still Siberian people, reported an escaped inmate that was also considered as someone who might have attacked the party. However, the same factors that cleared the Mansi people also indicated that they weren't the victims of the escaped convict. No signs of a struggle at the site. So unless the escaped convict could walk without leaving a trace and fight without leaving a trace, probably not what happened. Now,
when did they find the footsteps? Do you know?
Several months later, or actually about a month later. The 26th is when they first found them. So
okay, but
kind of confused as to how they can say that they're sure that they weren't hurried, that there was no... Because, I mean, even our people now who go in and do crime scene reconstruction and stuff, they'll tell you that the elements will wipe out a crime scene. So the fact that they're making all of these as statements kind of, I mean, if these things that they're saying don't necessarily mean that that's actually what happened. This is their best educated guess as to what happened.
See, you're talking about people who have gone to the mountains, and it just reminded me that it could have snowed again and ran over those footsteps, and you don't know if those are other people's footsteps or the same people's footsteps from, when that happened.
Okay. However, we have been able to track footprints for a time, and we can tell by the way a foot is set, especially a bare foot, whether someone is running or walking by the depth of the heel and the depth of the impression, even in snow. Now,
right, and I'm not discounting that, but what I'm saying is, yes, you can tell that, but even the best trackers, and I mean, if we have any listeners who know anything about tracking, please feel free to say I'm full of it, because I'm certainly not a tracking expert by any means, but it's my understanding that, tracks change due to the elements. They, can, the wind blows, that's going to change what footprint you have in snow, especially drifting snow. I mean, it just seems like they're laying a lot of things out as this is what happened, when I don't see any actual scientific way that somebody could put that down and say, yes, this is what happened. That's all I'm saying.
Well, let's deal with... This is the answer from the skeptical community, is that they suffered either a slab avalanche or a hurricane. A slab avalanche is, whereas a typical avalanche is like just snow gathered and falling down, and it can contain other materials and ice and whatever. It tends to be more of a uniform thing. Whereas a slab avalanche is a bunch of heavy snow that falls like a slab,
right,
almost crushing people underneath of it.
Sure.
And that is why there's some speculation it might have been a slab avalanche, because it does seem to explain some of the injuries.
Well,
okay.
And it also might explain why the tent was cut open from the inside if a slab avalanche happened and came down on top of them and then continued to move. They may be stuck inside the tent. They may have had to cut it open to get out of it.
That too, but also my question is, how would they get out of under all that snow to go to the places that they got to?
Well, they're on a mountain. If it's an avalanche, it may hit them but keep
Well, but see, okay, here's one of the problems with that.
Okay.
Dyatlov himself
Uh-huh.
was rated for mountaineering. Like people credit him with a lot of knowledge mountaineering. He certainly would not have set up a tent in any place an avalanche would have hit it. Neither would have the older member of the party, Semyon Zolotaryov, the 38-year-old. Neither one of them would likely have set up the tent in a place where an avalanche would have hit it.
No, because they're smarter than that.
And they're resourceful and they're experienced. So, yeah. So that's the biggest argument against that. That and there's not enough evidence of a slab avalanche in my mind. So let's go to another. The Yeti. The Yeti is often blamed for their death.
Oh, leave that poor Yeti alone.
What did that Yeti ever do to you? Dang.
This mostly comes from the group's photos, one of which looks to be a picture of a Yeti. However, it almost certainly is not a picture of a Yeti, but rather a member of the group goofing around. As much as I would love to say there's proof of a Yeti attack here, I gotta go nope.
I think people want to have some fun sometimes. People want to, like...
Well, if you think about it, 1959, bunch of young men and women, for the most part, with one exception, on a hike full of energy after eating loaves of bread and whatever else. They
were on a sugar high. They were out.
Chances are, somebody's like, hey, look, I'm a Yeti. Hey, take a picture of Slobodan over there being the Yeti. That's so funny. I honestly don't think it's a picture of an actual Yeti.
Gotcha.
Also from the woo-woo group, UFOs/aliens. A similar group of hikers, roughly 30 miles away, reported a series of orange balls of light in the vicinity of the Dyatlov camp the night of February 1st, which is the night that this would have happened. Furthermore, these lights were reported from Ivdel as well. These lights were seen throughout February and into March and were reported by both Russian weather and the military, among others.
Wow. I mean, I guess that could be something.
Another possible explanation is a military weapons test. Because of the weird lights, the radiation, and the strange injuries, some believe that they were caught in a military weapons test of some kind.
That too.
I mean, I guess, but, like, if they were, like, aren't some of those weapons going to be sharp?
No, not necessarily. The military has bombs and...
But can you explain the results of people seeing how they died and then being like, oh, yep, that's something due to the weather? I understand, like, the crushing of the chest, but when you think about it, like, and they're dying because of the weather, or quote-unquote dying because of the weather, and they saw the results in that, do you think that would really be a attack from weapons?
Well, if it's an attack from weapons, it's probably a test of some kind of missile, some kind of something. But, and there are, we can cover each of these if you want. These are just theories at this point, and frankly, I don't think any of them has it all. Number 7, the original explanation was death by a compelling unknown force. The more recent investigation has it down to an avalanche or hurricane. There are, however, some inconsistencies with that idea as well, including the location of the incident did not have any signs of obvious signs of an avalanche having taken place. An avalanche would have left certain patterns of debris distributed over a wide area. That didn't happen. The bodies found within a month of the event were covered with a very shallow layer of snow, and had there been an avalanche of sufficient strength to sweep away the second party, these bodies would have been swept away as well. This would have caused more serious and different injuries in the process and would have damaged the tree line. Over 100 expeditions to the region had been held since the incident, and none of them have ever reported conditions that might create an avalanche. A study of the area using up-to-date terrain-related physics revealed that the location was entirely unlikely for such an avalanche to have occurred. The dangerous conditions found in April and May when the snowfalls of winter were melting. During February, when the incident occurred, it showed that even if there could have been a very specific avalanche that found its way into the area, its path would have gone past the tent. The tent had collapsed from the side, but not in a horizontal direction. Dyatlov was an experienced skier, and the much older Zolotaryov was studying for his master's certificate in ski instruction and mountain hiking. Neither of these two men would have been likely to camp anywhere in the path of a potential avalanche.
Fair enough.
Footprint patterns leading away from the tent were inconsistent with someone, let alone a group of 9 people, running in panic from either real or imagined danger. All the footprints leading away from the tent and towards the woods were consistent with individuals who were walking at a normal pace.
So, is that all that we have?
Well, we have one final thing to add to this. On the 12th of April, 2018, Zolotaryev's remains were exhumed on the initiative of journalists of the Russian tabloid newspaper Komsomolskaya Pravda. Contradictory results were obtained. One of the experts said that the character of the injuries resembled a person knocked down by a car, and the DNA analysis did not reveal any similarity to the DNA of living relatives. In addition, it turned out that Zolotaryev's name was not on the list of those buried at Ivanovsk Cemetery. And I apologize for messing that up. Nevertheless, the reconstruction of the face from the exhumed skull matched post-war photographs of Zolotaryev, although journalists expressed suspicions that another person was hiding under the Zolotaryev's name after World War II. So, that is what we have. What it looks like, okay, I don't have a theory.
You don't?
I don't. Of the ones they've listed,
I kind of felt like you might, the way you were talking, but I guess I misunderstood you, so.
This is the closest I got. 9 people who should know better left their tent at a calm pace, did not bring any of their gear or equipment with them.
Right.
And died from hypothermia or severe injuries. Injuries that I don't know that they could have had if they left the tent. Like the skull injury. How does someone with a skull injury walk out of a tent?
So, you don't know that they had the skull injury before they got out of the tent.
Right. So, the best I've got is kind of a rough timeline. Maybe they heard something, saw something, big flash of light, something that took them out of their game, but it would have had to be something very unusual.
Right.
Because we're dealing with resourceful people that were not tyros. This was not their first rodeo. They knew what they were doing. So it had to be something well outside of their experience to cause them to make this bonehead error. Or something had to have been occurring to affect their thinking. But other than those rough statements, I got nothing. I mean, the best I can come up with is if those lights were seen through all of April, and if those lights are regularly seen, and if the Mansi people are to be believed, then maybe that area is kind of like a Russia's Skinwalker Ranch.
Maybe.
And maybe they went through a portal or something. But I mean, that's just a rough guess. Right. And I have no confidence in that guess. Let me stress. I have no confidence in that guess. So it's an interesting mystery. We don't know what happened even to this day. And you add in the fact that Zolotarev might not have been Zolotarev at some point, then I really don't know. Because something made 9 skilled, experienced hikers leave their tent in the middle of the night, cut it open, no less, and walk away from their camp. And I mean, these guys...
Unprepared for the elements.
Yeah, completely unprepared for and we're talking about people that would have at least, let's say it was an avalanche, they would have at least grabbed their boots and a warm jacket on the way out. Why? Because it's worth it to wait the extra few seconds to grab those things, because even if snow is falling on your tent, without those things, you're dead. You are absolutely dead.
Why would they sit there and listen to that avalanche if they were like, if they heard that avalanche, they'd be hurrying to the other side. They wouldn't be like passing ever so lightly, like walking, doing the yada yada. You know, that I honestly, with a bunch of smart people like that, I could not understand or even see that happening to somebody who, like, has done this before. Like, if they heard that, I'm sure they'd be trained. If they heard that, they have evacuation plans and they need to get out.
Right.
In order and not just scatter. Yeah.
Yeah, so that pretty much brings us to our summary, our final thoughts. So, like I said, this one baffles me. I thought I knew going into it. I thought I had a thought. You know, I guess this is what happened. After actually doing the studying that I've done, I don't
feel confident with any of it, huh?
No, because none of it makes sense. None of it adds up. None of it adds up.
Are you done with your summary?
Yeah.
Okay. So about the only ideas I have, because, I think the unthinkable when it comes to thinking the unthinkable, which is basically what this was.
You are very much our pie in the skyer. We love that about you.
So basically, my brain comes up with a bunch of stupid stuff. Like, I thought possibly because of the head abrasions in the chest abrasions, I thought possibly maybe the train had crashed, and they weren't, maybe... Did they specify which head got to which skull got crushed?
Yeah. Hang on. Yeah, that was Nikolai Vladimirovich Thibault Brignolis.
It was Nikki.
It could have been a train crash, and then they got to the spot where they needed to go. They traveled that way, and then, it blurred, and they all went separate places. It could have been a well thought out, death for all of them, Because if you think about it and you think really hard, which this is probably not what happened at all, but the dude who left, sometimes people fake things, and I don't know if he had any actual records with, how, the problems he had with his body. You don't know if, he actually had those.
Actually, we do. He lived until he was 73. Yuri Yudin left the group, and he was the reason that was the biggest reason that he got people to go and explore, because he had been with the group and knew their plans. So when they didn't make it back by February 10th, I want to say, he was like, something's wrong. You need to go check this out.
Yeah, the best thing I've got is they got into a train crash and they had to hop onto a different train to get to where they were going. And even so, they don't have any records of that.
There's no train.
The train they arrived on to Ivdel, if that crashed, there'd be records of it.
Yeah, and even so, yeah, there's no records of it. So I don't... Brain no work, I guess. Because all of this is just really confusing if you think about it. Like, the best thing I had is
If you put a gun to my head and said pick one, I would pick some sort of military weapon experiment. But,
yeah, honestly.
But because... But it would have to be a real unusual weapon to draw them out of their tent and make them cut the side open, which at that point their tent's really not usable anymore.
A chemical weapon or something.
Yeah, it had to be something really different, or like a neutron bomb or something that...
A bomb that was placed under the snow before they got out under it.
Well, see, the idea of a neutron bomb is it kills people, it leaves buildings. And I don't know that one has ever been built. But maybe
Let's not go encouraging things like that to come to pass.
So, but that's just like it would have to be something on that level of unique to get them out of their tent in such a hurry.
I mean, you literally said it. There was only 9 footsteps, you said? And they were walking, obviously. But why? That's some of the things that we'll never understand, and I don't think we'll get to understand it unless somebody overcomes the unthinkable, and it's just and puts pieces together, and it's just this happened, and I know this happened because.
Yeah, so... Whew.
Mama?
I think I kind of weighed in on everything. I feel like, and I probably would want to go in and maybe do some more of the updated research. So I did see that there was recently a book that was published last year.
Yeah.
I want to say for the 65th or something anniversary of the incident. So, I mean, I'm glad that they're continuing to look at it. I feel like this is one of those things that there may still be possibilities that maybe when the incident actually took place, that maybe records weren't exactly put in the way they maybe necessarily would have been in this day and age. But I mean, we never know. We come back to this over and over again that there are more things in the world than we know or see, and so we just kind of leave it at that most shows, and that's where I'm at today as well.
Well, yeah, I guess I would put in one more thing here, which is I didn't include that one of the more recent things that they've posited as a solution for all of this is that Frozen, the movie Frozen, the one movie by Disney that I hate more than any other, the one that sickens my soul.
Don't start with me.
Don't start with Mama. I don't want to fight at the end of the podcast. Family plot.
But that movie used basically computer-generated snowfall. And that someone used that model to recreate the snowstorm that the Dyatlov group was in. And according to their recreation, they suffered an avalanche. But this doesn't make any sense to me. One, there's no evidence of an avalanche. None whatsoever, other than the soft tissue injury or the bodily injuries. That we have no evidence of an avalanche. So, and it ignores the fact that these are well-trained hikers who wouldn't panic at that. Unless a giant boulder came and flattened their tent.
Okay, but just to circle back on that one more time, you've said multiple times they weren't panicked. According to the documents and the investigation that took place at the campsite, or what was left of it,
right?
They weren't panicked footsteps. They got out of the tent. They didn't take their belongings with them, but they got out of the tent and they were not panicked. They were not rushing. They were not running. So, there may have been reasons for that. Again, they didn't find them for 2 months. And I think that anyone in the mountains will tell you that the weather and things can take drastic changes even in a couple of days, much less months. So it's very possible that whatever the situation was that they were out in was no longer able to be seen by the time people actually found the remains of the campsite itself and the remains of the people. But again, we weren't there and can't really speak to that. That's just something to keep in mind.
One of the only things that I could have thought up at this time was they had evacuation plans. They had to use them for something very, very certain that might have happened. And they were I'm sure people like this were trained.
Sure.
And it had to happen at the time, and they had to split up and stuff.
Like your dad said, they're certified hikers and certified ski. Some people, or at least one of them, was being certified to be a ski instructor.
Right, but that's the only thing I can think of is these guys had a certain evacuation plan, and they had to use it, and, they just went calmly and do what, most evacuation plans have in them is to calmly exit the facility they are in. But, I can't think of anything else because
the whole situation's just kind of weird.
This is the only thing in my head that works, okay? They're woken up by something. Maybe a blast, but it sort of robs them of reason. Maybe there's something in the air, maybe, I don't know, but something wakes them up, and it sort of robs them of reason. And so, instead of making an orderly exit, they cut through the tent, they shamble out to go check on whatever it is, and by the time they come back to themselves and holy heck, I'm almost naked here in the snow, I'm going to go back to the tent if I can find it.
But some of them just gave up and, started trying to live their own life until help came there or just anybody came to look for them.
But I don't know what would cause that sort of
it's the kind
confusion.
It's the kind of thing that you have to get there early for, or else it's not going to work at all. The people before that, I know it would have taken a couple days, but not a couple months. When you think it's 2 or 3 days past, it's time to go check. It's time to go look. You can't have a month later. You can't have somebody be like, "Oh, hey, it's been a month. Can you go check, please?"
And
it's kind of something that you have to work on as a as a whole or business that keeps these people.
And I have to say that the unsubstantiated report that we have about the pilot, the military pilot who said he would not transport the bodies unless they were in lead-lined coffins, that comes from a guest that was on an episode of Astonishing Legends. And he was very interested and was actually going to go back to Russia once they reopen the investigation. And he's the one who said that there is a pilot that said he would not fly the bodies unless they were in lead-lined coffins. Now, I don't know the guy, so that's why I say the report is unsubstantiated, because I couldn't find anything to back it up. But if that guy is really close to the case, maybe he knows something I don't. Maybe, which would put this in the case of the Russian military, but whatever they tested, I have no idea what it would be.
At this point, there's not a lot we can say about it. And at this point, if maybe if the events were to play differently, they would have played out differently, and we'd be able to get all the stuff that we need to know. But right now, we weren't there. We don't know what happened, and there's no way of going back and looking at it and being like, "Oh, shoot, they died that way." But
yeah, until we develop a time machine and can look in the past, I think this one's going to be as mysterious as Jack the Ripper.
There's a bunch of mysterious stories, and the people look over all of them, and it's just like, what happened there? And you really have to think the unthinkable, and to think the unthinkable, you have to do the unthinkable. And you have to look back at what was possible in the story and put it in front of you and connect the puzzle pieces. It's really like a big puzzle, and there's more than 1,000 pieces to it.
Right, and we're missing 600 of them. And I think that's the biggest part of the problem, is we are missing the facts or the proof that would connect all the dots we have.
Right.
We have a bunch of dots, we don't have enough lines. There they go.
It's like connect the dots and puzzle pieces, It's really not going to work if you don't have all the dots or all the puzzle pieces or all the lines to connect those dots.
Right. Well, that's our show, really. What do you guys think? Do you have an opinion? Do you have information that we don't have? I'm not the best researcher in the world, so maybe you know something I don't. Feel free to reach out to us. If you do, you can, of course, join our Facebook group and reach out that way. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest, as well as TikTok for Krysta. And join us next week as we examine rumor-shrouded Eastern State Penitentiary.
Ooh. Sounds fancy.
Yes. So that is our show. Bye. See you next week. Bye.